Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex. Today we're talking Kyle Pitts, tight end out of Florida. Phenomenal prospect, athlete, everything in between. He's pretty much what Evan Engram should have been coming out of Ole Miss and everything that we wanted Evan Engram to become. But of course, the 11 drops this past year, just the constant mistakes. We just recorded a video, Anthony and I, on the channel showing all of the mistakes that Evan Engram actually did commit this year, including 5 interceptions that were thrown his way, 6 total turnovers. One of them was a fumble. This is a problem that Evan Engram has not managed to escape in the past, and now we're looking at, Kyle Pitts as a potential option for the Giants with the 11th overall pick and seeing, maybe he could be a solution for Big Blue and, their issues at tight end and not being able to catch the football. And we've begged for Jason Garrett and the Giants to really utilize guys like Caden Smith more often, who, when he was on the field, produced pretty well. They actually managed to pick up some yardage, some first downs, and I was surprised to see them not utilize him in the passing game more frequently in 2020. But Evan Engram is their primary playmaker. He's really the only guy that they looked to and said, okay, he can be the guy on offense that can make plays and really create separation. And the thing is, after watching a lot of the film, you see Evan Engram, and he does create separation. He does get into gaps. He's really good at running up the seam and getting open. The problem is he is a turnover machine. He makes a lot of fundamentals mistakes when catching the football. One of them being he jumps at the point of attack and, throws off his entire body, puts momentum towards the ball. He doesn't gather the football. Other times, it's just boneheaded mistakes. It bounces off his hands and whatnot. I think it's a lot more mental than it is physical, because you see him every now and then, he'll make just a monster one-handed grab, and you're like, where is this Evan Engram? Why doesn't he show up every single week? Why isn't he there every single day? I think it's more mental with his mistakes. He just doesn't trust himself. He doesn't trust his abilities, his hands. And we know he's in the top percentile in athleticism in terms of tight ends. But I'm kind of on from that. I've moved on from that justification at this point. I don't trust him to be the focal point at the tight end position for the Giants moving forward. And we know how important tight end is for some teams. Look at George Kittle, San Francisco. You look at Travis Kelce with, the Kansas City Chiefs. Darren Waller with the Raiders. There's so many guys, even Hunter Henry with San Diego. When you have a good tight end, it really makes a difference. And I would consider Evan Engram good when he's not beating himself. And I just think he doesn't do himself any favors. He's in his own head. Hopefully 2020 moves on. He goes into his 5th year and he really dominates, shows us he can be the guy for the future. But the Giants have to be looking at alternative options at every position. There's no position that's ever safe. It's always competitive. You always want to be getting the most out of your players. So that leads us to Kyle Pitts. Before we dive into Kyle Pitts, I do want to give you my joke of the day. This is a Dallas Cowboys joke. What is the difference between a Cowboys fan and a baby? The baby will stop whining after a while. Pretty good. I feel like Cowboys fans are always complaining. I kind of wish Jason Garrett was still there in Dallas, because they're perennially like an 8-9 win team that loses in the first round of the playoffs. So I kind of miss that aspect. Who knows? Mike McCarthy did not look so good last year. There was a lot of internal turmoil within the team. But I still think that the Dallas Cowboys do have a very strong base, and maybe they will grow a little bit in 2021. I think the NFC East, this was a historically bad year for the division. I think they're actually going to get a lot better this next upcoming season. But for the most part, we can always hope as Giants fans that the Cowboys do falter, they do fail, and hopefully we just completely crush them, because it's been a while since we've actually been able to get their number in consistent seasons. It's been, years since we last beat the Cowboys. I think it was 2016 or something like that, since we had last beat them, but finally we got the win in Week 17, of course. But on to Kyle Pitts, man. This is a guy who continuously comes up on my Twitter feed, the draft boards. PFF has him being mocked to the Giants in some scenarios. And my question is why? Why is a tight end, when we have a Pro Bowler in Evan Engram, why is Kyle Pitts being mocked to the Giants? And at first I said to myself, I have no idea. And why is Kyle Pitts being mocked to the Giants? He is a receiving tight end that pretty much is Evan Engram, right? Theoretically, they're both receiving primary tight ends. These two players, let me get rid of any narratives that you had previously thought if you don't know who Kyle Pitts is, or if you have heard any alternative thoughts on him. Him and Evan Engram are vastly different. And they might play the same position. They might act in the same ways as receiving tight ends, but they are two players who couldn't be more different. And I'll tell you why. Evan Engram is a pass-catching tight end who cannot catch. Okay, we have seen it routinely, something that followed him from Ole Miss in college. and it has not been alleviated. He gets in his own head. His fundamentals are flawed at times. He's not the best blocker. We know this. Kyle Pitts can do it all, man. He's not the most refined blocker, and I hate it when people say he's a willing blocker. I hate that term. People are like, oh, he's a willing blocker. Yeah, I'm a willing blocker. Everybody's a willing blocker. Deion Lewis is a willing blocker. Doesn't mean he's good at it. Kyle Pitts is head and shoulders above a better blocker than Evan Engram, okay? He's a big body. He's 6'5", 240 pounds. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. There was actually, Brevin Jordan, another guy, was actually rated higher than him. But now Kyle Pitts is going to get that better rating going into the NFL, and I think he's a very, very talented player that we should not be sleeping on as a potential, pick for the Giants. And, his statistics from this past year are quite impressive. For a tight end, in 8 games, mind you, 8 games, 770 yards and 12 touchdowns. So keep that in mind. He almost averages over 100 yards per game, 1. 2, he averages over a touchdown per game. And he averaged 17.9 yards per reception, which tells you he's not just running short drag routes, short ins and outs, short hooks. He's pushing the field. And what I love about Kyle Pitts, and this is what people have begged the Giants to do with Evan Engram in the past, use him in the slot, use him as a wide receiver, split him out wide, do things with him. Evan Engram doesn't have the route running ability to play wide receiver, play that X-man on the outside. He can play in the slot, he can play inline, but he doesn't have the route running abilities, and he's not a great pass catcher. He also is, just lackluster when it comes to his breaks, and he doesn't come back to the football. There's a lot of things he doesn't do very well. Kyle Pitts does all of those things and then some, okay? He's a guy that you can say, he's a former quarterback, so he understands, how he can help his quarterback perform better. Give him an opportunity to complete a pass that might not be in the right spot, put his body in the right place. He's a very, very good body control. His size at 6'6", they're listing him a little bit different places, but he's right between 6'5", 6'6". Tall guy, a really great red zone threat, and he's a big guy. He's 240 pounds. Probably will add a little bit more size too. As a run blocker, he is sustainable. They're saying he's a willing, see that word again, a willing one-on-one blocker. I don't think he's like the most physical, aggressive guy when it comes to playing in line at the tight end position and dominating in the trenches like that. He's not going to be a Levine Toilolo where you're expecting him to seal the outside on running outside zone runs or sweeps. That's not what he's good at. It's not what he's going to do. But he can get it done against some decent players. He will, I don't want to say be above average in blocking, but we could settle on average and be totally fine with that. And why? Why will we settle on average for blocking? Because he is an above average catcher. He's an above average receiver. He has the ability to cross train at both tight end and wide receiver. That's not a lot of players can do that. He is, just a unicorn when it comes to the tight end position, right? He has the ability to split out wide. The Giants don't have a really great outside receiver who can get open, and he runs routes like a wide receiver. That's the thing about him. He's so much different than just a tight end who's running those drags and short route concepts over the middle of the field. The Giants force-fed Evan Engram on hook routes in the middle of the field. Half of Daniel Jones' interceptions went to the middle of the field within 10 yards, right where Evan Engram was. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about Kyle Pitts, because he is averaging 17.9 yards per reception. He can stretch the field. He can play X, Y, Z. Just a phenomenal talent who, you can do a lot with him. But the thing is, you need to have a coordinator. I don't know if Jason Garrett is that guy, but you need to have a coordinator who knows how to utilize tight ends in very different and versatile ways. Using him as an outside guy, as an outside threat, using him in the slot, using him as a Z guy, using him in line. He can do it all. And if you add another player, let's say like Curtis Samuel, let's say, Allen Robinson, think how many playmakers the Giants have on the offense now. You have Saquon Barkley. I consider Daniel Jones and his running ability a threat, always. Saquon Barkley, who we know when healthy is one of the best running backs in the NFL. Allen Robinson, let's say theoretically they added Allen Robinson, which would be the best case scenario in free agency in terms of wide receivers that are available. Allen Robinson is a fantastic talent, can win in man coverage, is a proven commodity, comes over. He's dealt with some terrible quarterbacks in the past. Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles, struggled this past year. So he's gotten it done with good to bad quarterbacks. Like he's shown he can make guys look better than they are. So I actually think adding a guy like that would be a really big benefit for the Giants. And you say, okay, maybe instead you go Kyle Pitts at 11. I'm not the biggest fan of going Kyle Pitts at 11 because I think that a lot of people see him as a generational talent. I think that if he was a generational talent, he would also be able to block at an above average level. But he is the quintessential modern day tight end, right? And, modern day tight ends need to be used in various ways in terms of as an outside receiver, inside receiver. He has the production to show for it. Keep in mind, over 8 games, he almost averaged 100 yards per game and over a touchdown. He had 12 touchdowns in 8 games. That's crazy. That is insane production for Florida. And if you know the Florida Gators, they're a defense-heavy football team. They always have been. They've always relied on their defense. Their offense has always been second tier. It's never been elite, above average. He's made them above average. He's made them, or even brought them to average. He's been kind of the changing of the guard for Florida in the sense that he has brought something that they haven't had in quite some time. And then for the Giants, when you have a tight end like that, the way that Jason Garrett, if he does stay, which I think he might, the way that Jason Garrett uses his tight ends, he loves to force feed tight ends. And if that's the case, you have to say to yourself, Dave Gettleman is going out to find personnel to fit his coaching schemes, right? To fit the coach's styles. Kyle Pitts is exactly the guy that Jason Garrett would love to have on his offense because he can win outside against cornerbacks. He can win inside, in line, coming up, chipping and then releasing. He can block adequately, better than Evan Engram can, so there's that. He just has all of the things you love to see in a tight end coming into this modern-day NFL scheme where it's size, speed, and you're trying to beat up defensive backs. He has the if you match him up against linebackers, you're screwed. There's no linebacker in the NFL, maybe Levante David is the only guy I can think of, that can man up with Kyle Pitts and go step for step with him on an actual route. There are not many guys who can get that done at the linebacker position. You need a corner to actually cover him. And when you're splitting him out wide, if you bunch formation, you use trips on either side of the formation, doesn't matter. You can do so many things with him. Let's say you have Sterling Shepard, you have Darius Slay, and I'm just using 2 guys that we know and familiar with. Darius Slay and Sterling Shepard and Kyle Pitts. You push Darius Slay on a go route. You use Sterling Shepard on a whip, and you drag Kyle Pitts across the formation. You're just doing so many different things that you're going to force defensive backs to follow Darius Slay, and you're going to force a defensive back to follow Shepard on the whip route. One of those guys is going to be open. You're going to have some success there. Then you have Saquon Barkley, and you have to have linebackers and safeties spying on him at all times. Kyle Pitts can do a lot for you in terms of opening up and maximizing other people because he commands so much attention. And, they do say, like, I want to bring it to, like, an actual NFL example. The NFL is about double teams, about matchups, mismatches, and it's a copycat league. So if you look at guys like Travis Kelce, George Kittle, what Kansas City and 49ers do with them, you just copycat that and apply it to Kyle Pitts. That's kind of where I'm going with how the modern day tight end is being utilized. But he is just such an extravagant talent. He made more plays 15 plus yards downfield than any tight end in the history of college. He is that talented. That's an actual statistic that I did read. So when we're thinking about the Giants at 11, my question for you is, do you think Kyle Pitts is a good option for them? Because I've heard a lot of people talk about Kyle Pitts and how talented he has been for Florida, and if he would be a good fit for the Giants. A lot of people are even throwing him in. I asked on Twitter the other day, would you rather Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Kyle Pitts, or Jalen Waddle? And I saw a lot of Kyle Pitts responses. I was quite surprised. And that just says to me, the people that have watched him, no, he's not a traditional tight end. The fact that he can line up outside, if you go out and get an outside receiver, like just think about if you had Allen Robinson on the outside of the X spot, you had Sterling Shepard in the slot, and you had Kyle Pitts on the outside, and you can just utilize a variation of things when it comes to those trio of players. I'm just using as an example. But when you put a guy like Kyle Pitts in motion, he can run into the slot. He can run out of the Z spot. He can do so much, tight end screens. You can do so much, especially with Jason Garrett, who loves to use tight ends. We saw he force feeds Evan Engram despite knowing the fact that he's probably going to turn it over once per game, or at least once every 2 games. Like, there's a good chance he's going to drop it. And he still was force feeding him because, that's the playmaker. Kyle Pitts does not drop the football. Just take a second to soak that in. Kyle Pitts does not drop the football. He did not drop the football once last year. Did not drop the football one time, and he had 43 receptions. So 43 targets that were on his frame, and he did not drop a single one of them. So keep that in mind, how important having a tight end who can catch the freaking football is, because if Evan Engram doesn't turn that ball over 6 times this year and drop the ball routinely, the Giants are in the playoffs. That's the difference. The Giants are in the playoffs if Evan Engram does not drop those passes. Of course, there's a lot more to blame for the Giants than just Evan Engram. There's way more. I'm not blaming him for the entire thing, but what I'm saying is those mishaps, if you are a Pro Bowl level player, you do not drop the football, especially if you literally make a living catching the football. If you make a living catching the football, you do not drop the football. If I was an accountant in my job, I made a living counting numbers for companies, and I messed up the numbers and I screwed up an entire project, I would no longer be making a living as an accountant. Okay? You see the analogy I'm using here. You see how I'm trying to portray that Evan Engram cannot be trusted if he cannot do the main purpose of his job. He is making $6 million next year. If he cannot catch the football, he should not be in the NFL. Okay? That's the bottom line. Athleticism is great, but if you don't have the natural talent, if you don't have the mental attributes, if you can't remain confident after making a mistake, you do not belong in the NFL. And Evan Engram is a fantastic player when he's playing well. Problem is, he's never consistently played well where we've been able to sit there and say, I think he's going to bounce back next game. His best game of the season came against the Bengals. And in that game, he had a fumble. You know what I mean? Like, even in his best games, he's making mistakes. Kyle Pitts does not make mistakes. And you're probably sitting here wondering, Alex really likes Kyle Pitts. He seems like he's advocating for the Giants to draft him. I'm not. I am just selling him to you guys so you can make a decision, okay? I don't think the Giants should take Kyle Pitts. If Kyle Pitts and Devonta Smith are on the board, I am taking Devonta Smith. I'm not taking Kyle Pitts. However, if all those guys are off the board and Kyle Pitts is on the board and the Giants are in a position saying, maybe, a quarterback, Zach Wilson's still on the board, let's trade back a couple spots and land Kyle Pitts, I'm down. I'm cool with that. He is that talented that he brings so much to an offense, and he's NFL ready. That's why I like him, but I'm not advocating for the Giants to pick him, so I'm just selling him to you. I'm giving you the information and what he's good and talented at. He can play in line, he can play slot, he can play outside receiver. You do not find tight ends in the NFL who can play wide receiver. My NFL comparison for him, and you're going to love this, is Darren Waller. He actually might be even better than Darren Waller in the NFL. We know how good Waller is. He is basically the modern tight end to a T. He is a pass catching, he's big, he's a basketball player. That is what he is. He is a pass catching tight end. Kyle Pitts can be better than him. Kyle Pitts can do what he does, but play outside receiver too. And he's a fantastic route runner. That's why I like Kyle Pitts. He is not traditional. He changes the game. The problem is, I don't think the Giants have an offensive coordinator who can actually maximize his abilities, right? I don't think he has the talent. I don't think he has the play scheme. He would have to pretty much conjure a new offensive system to fit Kyle Pitts. He would have to design specific plays for Kyle Pitts, just like he was planning to do with Saquon Barkley. But that's my big thing. That's how I feel about Kyle Pitts. I think he has the potential to be a phenomenal player in the NFL. If the Giants picked him, I would not be upset. I would hope they trade Evan Engram, or at least if they're going to use 2 tight ends, hell of a 2 tight ends to use frequently, They might even change the game with having 2 elite tight ends like that, at least pass-catching guys. If you consider Evan Engram an elite pass-catching tight end, I highly doubt you do. But again, the offensive draft this year, there is so many offensive pieces. I think there's going to be, in the first 11 picks, there's going to be at least 9 offensive players off the board. The defense is not that deep until the late first round, early second round. That's when the defense starts to kick into shape. There's some cornerbacks and pass rushers, guys like that, some interior defenders. The offense is flush with talent this year. There's going to be a guy that drops. There's going to be teams that don't like Devonta Smith's weight at 175. He doesn't have that much more mass to put on. I think he could probably get up to 190 max. But I'm not too worried about the weight problem. That's not something I'm worried about. Kyle Pitts is a guy who, if he's on the board for the Giants, I wouldn't be mad if they took him, but he's not my first option. And, you're going to see why in Devonta Smith's video we did with Chris. I love Devonta Smith. He's a prospect I've fallen in love with. If he's on the board, if him and Chase are on the board, I'm taking Chase. But if Devonta Smith is on the board when the Giants pick and Chase is gone, I'm taking Devonta Smith. That's just how I feel. The weight is not a big issue to me. I think he can put on some extra weight. His route running is elusive. He's versatile, just an incredible talent. But we're going to be talking about all the draft prospects as the offseason goes on. Of course, we're trying to get a video out per day for you guys to get as much information, make you guys, have your own analysis and opinion on all these players. That's my point. I'm trying to sell, every player to you guys so you have the pros and what they bring to each team. But for the most part, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Obviously, there's going to be some clips involved. I'm hopefully going to put them in the video so you can watch some of what Kyle Pitts is capable of doing. But I appreciate all the support from you guys. As always, thank you so much, and we will catch you guys on the next one.